Welcome in to Check the Mic. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson. We're live on YouTube. It's our Wednesday show, Sam, and it is jam-packed, loaded Wednesday show here. We'll review Monday Night Football, the doubleheader once again. We've got Kalyn Kahler coming on talking about stealing cap space. How do you steal cap space in the NFL as an NFL team? And then Rich Gannon on here to discuss the quarterback play development and give us some insight on how maybe some of these other second-chance quarterbacks have had some success over these last couple of years.
And perhaps most important of all, we're going to wrap up the show with a discussion about billionaires. Some real billionaire nuggets we've got coming.
It's going to be the best segment we've done of all time. I don't want to overrate it, but we were a little rushed on Monday when you were trying to talk about Arthur Blank and what he did on Sunday night. And we had an incredible email from a listener. Incredible email breaking down billionaires. You've done a lot of research, and we're going to give you the time you deserve. The time that you deserve to break it all down.
We've had a listener that did some research themselves. That's worthy of airtime. And then I've done some further research to add some more color to the billionairing.
Also very important here, the entire show, Check the Mic, brought to you by PrizePicks. Appreciate our friends over at PrizePicks. We've got, Sam, you got a lineup later that we're going to break down.
The first.
For this week's games. But PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. So that's what we're going to do. Later, you have a lineup that we're going to break down. I'll have a lineup for tomorrow for this week's games. PrizePicks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half, doesn't return, PrizePicks keeps your picks live. They're still live even if someone gets hurt. PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. So when your picks hit, you can get your money as quick as 15 minutes. That's pretty solid. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. So we're excited to be playing. There's also something very special in the Discord, Sam.
Yeah.
So if you sign up in the Discord, there's what do they call it, a group?
A group?
What do they call the channel within the Discord?
Yeah.
Just for the PrizePicks. Just for PrizePicks. So sign up there. Send your screenshot when you sign up, and we'll have our own little special channel within the Discord and have a little competition there.
Yep.
So what you're going to do is download the PrizePicks app today. Use code CheckTheMic and get $50 instantly when you play $5. It's a great deal. Code Check the Mic on PrizePicks. Get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's all guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, Sam, we'll talk a little bit more about PrizePicks later on. Let's touch on Monday Night Football. We had the doubleheader. We had the beatdown by the Buffalo Bills over the Jacksonville Jaguars, and then that incredible Commanders-Bengals game, the coming out party for Jaden Daniels with the Commanders win 38-33. Touch on Bills-Jags and what that means right now. Bills moving to 3-0, Jags falling to 0-3.
Yeah, I mean, so we did our, not an instant reaction show, our next day reaction show on YouTube, if you watch that. The most amazing thing about that Buffalo-Jacksonville game was how early it became obvious that it was going to go exactly that way. Like literally the first play from scrimmage, there's a complete breakdown in Jacksonville's defense. James Cook out of the backfield for a big, solid gain. Like every drive on that opening, or every play rather on that opening drive was a Jacksonville calamity on defense. And then it just kept going that way. Buffalo had their way on offense. Jacksonville couldn't get much going themselves. Trevor Lawrence, airmails Brian Thomas Jr. for a bad interception. And it was just a destruction. I mean, Jacksonville was just getting vaporized by the Bills. It was 34-3 at halftime. And at that point, it's just, all right, mercy rule. Let's just get through the second half and get out of here. But absolute disaster from Jacksonville's point of view. Obviously, phenomenal result from Buffalo's point of view, but wow, just a complete one-sided domination.
I want to touch on this high level because, again, two teams on both ends of the spectrum here. Bills being 3-0 look like a powerhouse early on in a league that doesn't have a whole lot of powerhouses, right? Even a 3-0 Chiefs team is, winning 3 one-score games so far. The Bills look dominant, especially these last 2 weeks against the Dolphins when they did have Tua before he got hurt, and then against the Jags, 2 teams that were supposed to be good. And Buffalo doing it in a way where what happens when Josh Allen doesn't turn the ball over, right? There's a couple turnover-worthy plays in there these couple weeks, but he hasn't turned it over yet. Like, that was the biggest knock on Josh Allen is like, yeah, he's going to do superhuman things, and he could pull on it from whenever I saw Bills fans talking about this, right? Like, he's playing within structure, and Joe Brady's giving him more easy buttons, but then it's like, oh, I could be superhuman when I need to, and he hasn't needed to a whole lot yet this year. So you have Josh Allen not turning the ball over. They have this slew of yak monsters, right? They've got these slot receivers that and we've kind of put Keon Coleman in that bucket, even though he's playing outside. Guys who are very good after the catch, for guys who are very good in space, including their running backs, playing a great game for this 2024 NFL, handling a lot of injuries on the defensive side of the ball. Once again, probably playing above their expectations there. So the Bills look great. And then it's, on the Jags end, is it panic button time? Because it's been a disastrous run since the middle of last year for the Jags.
It has. I mean, it's been an absolute disaster for them. Like, the funny thing, so the Trevor Lawrence interception I already talked about, like, they were down bad at that point. They had just converted on fourth down. Like, they'd finally got kind of a positive thing. They were moving, and then one step forward, two steps back. Lawrence throws the ball way over his receiver's head. Terrible interception, and, just further increased the misery. But yeah, this is let's talk about Buffalo for a second first. Like, they have been fantastic so far this season. Their defense, I think from a big picture standpoint, they're interesting on both sides of the ball. We talked about in that reaction show whether or not it's conscious or just a happy accident, but Buffalo seems to have crafted an offense that's perfectly suited for the NFL that is 2024 through 3 weeks, by which I mean defenses are winning. They've taken away explosive plays. They're fighting back. They're forcing, I've seen somebody describe it as sort of forcing quarterbacks into becoming check down merchants. That perfectly suits an offense where you suddenly don't really have a number one X receiver on the outside, but you have a bevy of underneath yak monsters, slot guys, horizontal weaponry. Like, everything is built to exploit all the spaces that offenses are being forced into right now. So whether it's Dalton Kincaid, James Cook, Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir, all these guys that we were like, wow, do any of those really fit the bill as a Stephon Diggs replacement? The answer is no, but they don't need to be. They can actually coexist in an offense right now because that's where everything is being funneled. I don't know if the Bills saw this coming or if they just happened to have backed into this dynamic, but they seem to have the offense that's perfectly crafted to beat the way defenses are currently winning. And then on the defensive side of the ball, their defense has kind of been doing this for years anyway. So the league that's like suddenly running various versions of what Buffalo's been doing, well, Buffalo's like well rehearsed in this. We've been running this type of defense for years. We're ahead of the curve. We've just got experience in doing this. So somehow Buffalo's created this team where they're actually right at the cutting edge of both sides of the ball from the way the current league's trend is.
I would also add Von Miller looks back, part 3. Miller back, part 3. I mean, he may not be what he was 10 years ago, but certainly better than he was last year when he even admitted maybe he shouldn't even have been out in the field. But, man, he's got a couple of those moves, a couple of those rushes where the tackle has no chance against him. So you add that to the mix on the defensive side of the ball. Buffalo looking really good. How much is it panic time in Jacksonville? I mean, talking before the season with Jags media, and they asked, hey, look at the schedule. What happens if it starts poorly? So on paper coming in, it's like, hey, Miami, playoff team. Browns, playoff team. Looked like they were supposed to be good. Then to Buffalo on Monday night, right? Maybe one of the best teams in the league. Now they have the Texans this week. They're staring a potential 0-4 in the face coming off of a season last year where they lost every game down the stretch and missed out on the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, they're on 8 straight losses right now, right? That's obviously terrible. And yeah, it doesn't look like it's going to get easier at any point. Like, they're facing difficult teams. They're going to have to pull themselves out of this. And I don't know how they necessarily do that. The defense, so Trevor Lawrence got his big money contract. Like, he's there. The offense can pass protect. Brian Thomas Jr. can theoretically be an impact number 1 guy. They were talking before this game, they wanted to expand his role and get him more involved in all areas as opposed to just the things that we know he's good at, the vertical route tree. And I think that can work. Like, I think he's shown enough that he can actually be that guy. They might need him now to be Malik Neighbors or be Marvin Harrison Jr. or be that true all-around number 1 and be the guy that's going to take the volume in that offense. But I actually think based off 3 weeks and what we've seen, he might be capable of that. Whether or not Trevor Lawrence is capable of leaning on one guy and sort of him, whether or not the dynamic as a whole can do that is another matter. But I think the offense can actually achieve that. The defense, though, was just getting destroyed. I mean, and it's getting destroyed they can't be making kind of basic mistakes, right? Like, you can't have gap unsound football at this point in the development curve of this team. Whatever about how good is Trayvon Walker right now, where is he in his growth, how good are various other elements. None of that matters if you're not able to fill a basic run fit and get everyone in the right gap and make it difficult for an offense. Or if you're making basic coverage busts and a guy is uncontested 20 yards before anybody gets near him, that can't happen. And the fact that that's happening now at this stage is really concerning.
The other piece for the Jags, like what we just described for the Bills, didn't the Jags build their offense in the complete opposite way that the Bills did?
Yes.
They built...
Which we flagged as like a potential concern.
Yeah, they built it with all vertical receivers. To your point, if Brian Thomas Jr., who's looked really good overall, becomes more... they expand his role or expand expectations for what he can do, but Gabe Davis, Brian Thomas Jr., you mentioned Christian Kirk is more of a vertical slot. Evan Ingram's been hurt. That affects things as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're throwing the ball down the field more than ever in a league that's trying to prevent that. So that's one of the other pieces.
Yeah, and that part, so Evan Ingram has been hurt. He also wasn't being used much before he was hurt. Like, they seem to have deliberately gone towards this group of vertical receivers at exactly the same time as Buffalo went in the exact opposite direction. Buffalo's is working, Jacksonville's is not. That's definitely interesting. Von Miller is the guest on this week's St. Brown Brothers podcast.
Oh, really?
Today. So
he's basically a coworker this week.
Yeah.
Basically part of the show, friend of the show, Von Miller.
One last thing I wanted to mention about this game, which is weird, and then we can get off it. Keon Coleman basically didn't play at the start of the game. They were like, he wasn't on the field for the first couple of drives. I think his third snap was the touchdown. All of his snaps were outside. They addressed it after the game. They're like, no, there's nothing going on there. We were just sort of scheming him up the best possible matchup, blah, blah. Okay, that's, you can make that argument. It doesn't really explain why Mac Hollins was playing twice as much as him, though, in effectively the same positions. That's not a good development from Keon Coleman's point of view. Now,
still answering had the 24-yard touchdown.
Yeah, answering that by scoring a touchdown on one of your first plays is definitely a good thing from his perspective, but that was strange. He went from basically playing every snap on the outside as that X receiver to actually, you know what? Well, let's not put Keon Coleman on the field for the first few drives.
This is the 2024 Bills looking like the 2022 Chiefs. People brought this up at the time. They got rid of Tyreek Hill, and then when you watch the box score every week, it's like, who's the go-to guy? Oh, it's Juju Smith-Schuster this week. It's Travis Kelce, and it moves around. Bills had 10 different players catch passes. This isn't new for them this year. It's a spread the wealth type of offense. Whoever's open is open. Khalil Shakir is going to make plays after the catch. It's him this week. Is it James Cook out of the backfield? Dalton Kincaid had that one week where he wasn't targeted, and then he does make big plays in other weeks. It's the Bills' offense this year.
No. The targets isn't the issue.
I know he's not on the field.
Sitting him down on the field, so like having him not on the field for the first quarter and a half is different. That's weird, and I don't buy the explanation that
it was disciplinary. He was late. Josh Clark in the chat.
Okay, well, that makes sense because I don't buy their explanation of nothing was going on. We were just trying to get him a favorable matchup.
Walt finally with a good comment. Took him 3 years, but Jags need linebacker Kevin Hardy, University of Illinois dog, to come out of retirement. I agree. 1996 first round pick.
You think off the couch now he's an upgrade?
He might be. Let's talk Commanders, Bengals. Jaden Daniels, just the talk of the league after what he did the other night. It was, again, from both sides, needs to be discussed. But Jaden Daniels finished as 21 of 23 for 254, 2 touchdowns. Added another, the box score says 39 yards. It was really more than that because he had a couple kneels in there. Added a rushing touchdown in there. Unbelievable PFF grade, QBR, by every measure. I mean, he was 21 of 23. Yeah. It was incredible. And he makes, I'm telling you, man, that was one of the best throws I've ever seen. In crunch time, unblocked rusher from the Bengals. Cincinnati had a horrendous pass rush the entire game. They finally tried to speed him up at the end, which was smart. It was the right move. Cincinnati couldn't get home. The whole game is down to this one play. Jaden Daniels knows he's going to get hit, gets the ball out of his hand, which is incredible, and puts it in the only place Terry McLaurin can catch it, in the end zone. Unreal throw to seal the deal for Washington. And again, they win 38-33.
Yeah, phenomenal performance from Jaden Daniels and really from the whole Washington offense. I mean, they were spectacular. Daniels, like the running game, his rushing ability is really top tier. The happiest I saw, like his coach in the entire game, was when he actually slid instead of falling over or tumbling or doing something else weird.
Dan Quinn, they got him sliding lessons.
I mean, they've been trying to get him to slide for a while, but like he finally actually did it in open space. I think he'd already made a guy miss at this point, picked up the first down and slid. Like did a perfectly normal slide, just went, took what was there, gave himself up, took the slide, took the gain. Dan Quinn was absolutely elated. The 2 incompletions for Jaden Daniels in the day. One of them, he was like a fraction late, trusting the throw and putting it in the air, and ends up missing Terry McLaurin on what could have been like a 50-yard touchdown. And the other one as well was like a slot fade. Same thing. It's like it's on, and he just slightly overthrows as well. He was not very far away from having literally a perfect day from a passing perspective and adding another 100 yards and 2 touchdowns to his performance. Like that, it already set a record in terms of completion percentage for a rookie. Imagine turning 254 yards into 354 and 4 touchdowns with a 100% completion rate. They were fractions away from that happening.
Yeah, it was an incredible effort. As always, I try to understand things from both sides here. Jaden Daniels deserves a ton of credit. He was outstanding. He's comfortable. I called it a Lamar-like efficiency game because remember Lamar's had those games where he's 16 of 19 for like 250 and a couple scores, and then, oh, by the way, here's another 50 rushing yards. That was Daniels, right? I mean, part of the reason why he had such a good completion percentage is if the pass wasn't there, he was going to scramble, pick up 5, pick up 7, right? He was just going to make something happen if it wasn't there. Plus, the design run game, he is outstanding. I also watched this game and I said, I'm eyeballing it from the stands. I was there. And I'm thinking, this is the worst pass rush game I've seen from a team all season. And then the PFF grades confirmed it the next day. It was the lowest team pass rush grade for any team. And again, the grade from PFF, our friends over at PFF, the grade is going to account for speed of win. Is it against is it defeating a blocker or is it unblocked? All that stuff. They were just not winning, right? There was one real quick win by Trey Hendrickson for a sack, and that was pretty much it. And that's why down the stretch they had to blitz. They had to come after him, and Jaden Daniels still answered the call there. But this was just as bad from a Cincinnati perspective as far as their pass rush goes against Daniels. People brought up, are they trying to play contain? Are they mush rushing? I believe that's the case, right? Like Daniels is that special as a runner that you do have to be careful with your rush and not overcommit. But at the same time, it's not like they were keeping their pass rush lanes and containing him when they needed to. So it was just poor from the Bengals' perspective as well.
Yeah, the defense was absolutely gashed. I mean, that was a major concern for this defense going forward. I think, again, a little bit like Jacksonville, the offense showed that it's fine. It's like Joe Burrow had a pretty solid game. He left some plays on the table, but they put up 33 points. The offense has its receivers back now. Yosivash looks like he's adding himself to that mix as a serious sort of Tyler Boyd replacement, and certainly a guy that can be in there along with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. The offense is in good shape, but the defense looks like it's going to be an issue. I mean, the Bengals are 0-3. They're staring down the barrel of a Red Rifle-led Andy Dalton Carolina offense that's suddenly a completely different proposition than it was a week ago. That's 0-4, and that's the season. If they lose that game, I think the offense is up to the challenge. Like it showed it can hang with elite teams against Kansas City. It showed that it can be in business. I don't know that the defense is.
And this was I don't want to overrate one game, but this was a defense that had given up 275 passing yards. Like they gave up $150 to Mahomes the previous week.
Right.
They'd given up 275 through 2 weeks. The Bengals are breaking records left and right. They're in this game, they were the only team in history to score 4 touchdowns, not turn the ball over, and not punt and lose since 1970.
Right.
26.
I mean, this game set a bunch of records, whether it's Jaden Daniels' thing, that one that you mentioned. It was the first game since 1940 to have not a turnover or a punt in the game from either side.
It was nuts. I also have a PSA. I got to get this out there because I was arguing with people on Twitter yesterday. It was absurd. It was absurd. I don't know if you...
All the best content starts with,
I don't know if you got
arguing
into
with
this.
people on Twitter yesterday.
Bussin' with the Boys did this.
Uh-huh.
James Rapian works with his Bengals guy.
Yep.
Right? And Bussin' with the Boys, it was captioning malpractice. They did deceptive captioning, which I hate. I cannot stand. Deceptive captioning is ruining our country, Sam. It is ruining our country. Or maybe the world.
And yet nobody's running on that as a platform for the election.
Well,
I've seen a bunch of political ads on my
that's-
screen, and not one of them has mentioned deceptive captioning.
Because that's how they get elected, is with deceptive captioning.
Okay.
Right? You say the sky's blue, and you'd be like, no, my opponent says it's green. Don't watch the video for yourself. He said it's green. He said the sky's green. This guy's an idiot. That's how you run. That's how you get elected. That's how you do it. And so Bussin' with the Boys, so James does the post-game thing, and he says, he's trying to say the Bengals defense was bad, and he says, Jaden Daniels, I love him. He's a great player, but he's not that good. He says he's not that good, right?
Jaden Daniels, not that good.
And they came back and quoted, and they said, look at this guy, levels of hate. This guy said Jaden Daniels is, quote, not that good.
Yeah.
If you cannot distinguish between not that good and not that good, I don't know what to tell you. I can't help you. That's absurd. But Bussin' with the Boys, friends of the show. They were on the show.
Yeah.
Right? This isn't...
Do they qualify as friends? It was rather a...
It was a little contentious, but I thought we were friends by the end.
Okay.
Will gave me a hug at the Super Bowl last year. I think that's
did.
friendly enough.
Yeah.
But this wasn't Taylor and Will doing this. This is their social media team. But, they were wrong. This is wrong. This is deceptive captioning, and it drives me nuts. Because nowhere in that did he say Jaden Daniels isn't that good. Right. He says he's not that good, and I agree. I'm going to go out on a limb right now, Sam. I'm going to go out on a limb and say for the rest of Jaden Daniels' career, he's not going to complete 90% of his passes. He's just not going to do it. He's not going to average 11 yards per attempt. He actually isn't that good.
Well, this game ended up with a PFF grade of 95.9. So if he did that for the rest of his career, he would be the greatest quarterback of all time by a reasonable distance. Like, that would eclipse Brady and Mahomes by quite some margin if he did that every single game. So I think it's a fair assumption to say that this does not represent his baseline.
And so I just had to get that out there.
Okay.
And that doesn't take anything away from Jaden Daniels, right? Deceptive captioning is just a way to get people offended. It's just a way to trigger people into offense. Right? No one has taken anything away from Jaden Daniels, who had two of the best deep balls you will see all season in one game. It was unbelievable how well he played. And also true, the Bengals defense was terrible.
It's not clickbait because they don't actually want you to click on anything. What it is engagement farming. Like, they are deliberately misrepresenting a take because that gets more people interested. That's what all of those... not all of them. That's what a lot of those terrible accounts on Twitter, the Dove Klymans of the world, that's their thing, right? It's engagement farming. I am going to deliberately misrepresent this thing, knowing that most people won't ever click on the video and actually get the context. I just need the video so that I can then misrepresent it because that will get the people fired up, engaged, and that's how I get my $25 from Elon. That's the trick.
The problem isn't with Bussin' with the Boys as much. It's with people who read the caption and react to the caption and don't watch the video. Now, there's another group of people. They're all up in my mentions, Sam. There's like 4 of them. There's another group of people who did watch the video, and they said that's what he said. He said he's not that good. And if you cannot understand the emphasis on the syllable that he used, the emphasis on that, if you can't understand that, I can't help you.
Yeah. So look,
that's what Wednesdays are for.
I have sympathy with the idea that we're in a world now, and this predates video and social media and stuff, right? This is headlines used to misrepresent the article, right? And the irony of that is that the guy who wrote the article, the one thing he probably didn't write was the headline, because that's always been sub-editors, that's been somebody else whose aim was to maximize SEO. That was clickbait, right? Clickbait morphed into engagement farming, but it's the same concept, right? And I have sympathy with the idea that most people trust the guy writing the caption or the guy writing the headline to summarize accurately the context, right, of the thing. When they don't, it's not really on the person that didn't read the whole thing or watch the whole video to make sure that they weren't being lied to. I do, however, think that there's a group of people, and at the risk of alienating some listeners.
Not our listeners. Our listeners are not in this group that you're about to mention, Sam. I guarantee.
If you watch the video and you listen to the thing and you read the article and you just can't understand the thing that's been said, I mean, you're I can't help that.
We're in this. We can't help you.
There's
certain people
trying to avoid saying that those people are just too dumb to be helped, but that's kind of where we are there.
You won't alienate any of our viewers or listeners by doing that.
Good.
That certainly won't
Excellent.
happen. So coming out of this game, Washington's tied for first place at 2-1 with the Philadelphia Eagles. I can't say enough good things about Jaden Daniels. Obviously, everybody's going to be talking about him across the league. Washington's defense, I still think, is a problem. The Bengals' defense clearly is a problem. Their general narrative of, hey, we're going to stumble through 2 weeks, we'll figure it out in week 3, as you mentioned in the recap show. They started 1-3 last year, and they still hit a point in the middle of the season where they were one of the best teams in the NFL. They hit a stretch where they looked great. So they're not completely done. They got to figure something out with that pass rush, though, because Trey Hendrickson was playing hurt.
Yep.
When he's not hurt, we saw what he did against Kansas City. He almost single-handedly kept them in that game. But if you don't have Trey Hendrickson, they're banged up at defensive tackle. And Sam Hubbard's not providing anything. Bengals defense, they got to figure something out. Mm-hmm. We got to stretch this out for like 2 more minutes.
Do we? Yeah. Even though Kalyn's actually on the line? Ready?
Oh, she is?
Yeah. See, this works better if you pay attention to the messages that come your way during the show.
I didn't get a message.
It's in the Slack.
I thought they'd be in my ear.
No, not in your ear.
But before we get Kalyn, I went to the game on Monday night.
You did. You were live. You were there in person.
And I got there because of Game Time. Got there through our friends over at Game Time. As I mentioned, the Bengals, they denied us credentials.
Not just got there, but you saved money.
I saved money. I absolutely saved money. The Bengals said, no, you can't have a free ticket to the game as part of the press ticket. You cannot have a
credential
pass to the game.
Is the term. Yeah.
A credential. But I'm just using basic terms here.
Yeah.
We're not letting you in.
No.
But Game Time to the rescue.
You were not welcome.
I opened up my Game Time app. I used my Check the Mic promo, got $20 off, and I got to the game. It's great. Got all-in pricing. You toggle this feature. It shows the total right up front with no surprise fees at checkout. I got a panoramic view of my seat, so I knew exactly where I was going to be. I had the lowest price guarantee just in case. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference of another competitive price. And the purchase is covered by the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. And then they just texted me the link, and I brought the link up, and boom, it worked great. So shout out to our friends over at Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CheckTheMic for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code CheckTheMic, CheckTheMic, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time.
Beautiful.
All right, we got Kalyn.
Just making dreams happen with Game Time.
Look at this. Throwing it to Kalyn. Kalyn, how's it going? Welcome in.
Nope.
You have to unmute. We're 1 for 3 in unmuting, I think, the last 3 weeks. Who's the one who got it?
Was it Renner?
Renner's the only one who got it.
I'm hearing it. That's unusual.
Kalyn,
can you hear me?
Yes, we got you. How's it going?
Great.
Welcome in.
Doing well. How are you?
Excellent.
How are you guys?
Thanks so much for coming on.
Of course. Thank you. It's a kind of complicated story, so I appreciate being able to talk about it. I've been trying to talk about it on the radio, and it's like really kind of hard in like a 7-minute, to be like, this is what's happening, and it's hard to sort of explain it in limited time.
We'll give you some time, but you write some creative stories, right? You have I think over the last few years, had some incredible ideas and things that came to mind that maybe people haven't thought of, which is awesome. And this is one of those. The NFL teams can steal cap space. How did this come about, and what is actually going on here?
Yeah, so I think it was like last April, an agent that I know well, I don't know why we must have been talking about something that was related to this, but he was like, a story you need to write is how the Jets missed out on like $20 million of cap space for 2024. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he was like, well, Sportico, they did a story last October, so about a year ago, that the Jets did not buy insurance on Aaron Rodgers' contract after they renegotiated his contract when they traded for him. So there was a policy already in that contract that Green Bay had been paying for. But when the Jets took over the contract, they decided we don't want to pay for the premium. It's not worth it. Would have been around somewhere between $1 and $4 million. So it's not like nothing. It's a good chunk of change there. They decided not to buy the policy. So they were not insuring Aaron's contract last year. Then we all know what happened to Aaron. He missed the entire season except for 4 snaps. So what the Sportico article did a good job of explaining is that insurance is a thing. Teams take out insurance on player contracts so that they can get money back. But what it didn't explain is that you can actually get the same amount of money that you get your check from the insurance company, whatever that is for the player that got hurt that you've insured. The club then takes that receipt to the league office at the end of the league year in March, and they say, okay, here's what I got from insurance for this player. And that same amount is credited to your cap the next season. So for this 2024 season, Sportico had some of the details of the policy that they had turned down, and they said they had the ability to insure up to 20 million. They could have gotten around 20 million back from Rodgers missing the season, because there was I think there was 37 million money that he was guaranteed for 2023. So anyways, by not insuring him, the Jets missed out on around $20 million in cap space they could have right now, which, that's probably not the full extension for Hassan Reddick, but it could go towards that, right? Like, that's $20 million that you could spend this year that you can't because you didn't take out the insurance policy. And so that was really interesting to me. So this agent was explaining me that, and he's like, Sportico didn't talk about the cap space. They just said the insurance cash. And I was like, all right, let me look into this. So, this has been something available to teams since 2006. So it's not new, but it has been growing in popularity because two teams, the Eagles and the Niners, have kind of figured out, or in their minds, they think that this is an edge. They think this is a real advantage. And I can give a specific Niners example that I think will make it make more sense. But essentially, so if you remember back to 2021, the cap decreased that season by about $15 million. That was the first time it's ever decreased. That was because of the pandemic losses in 2020 when there were no fans in games. So the cap went down for the first time ever. And it just so happens that 2020 was also a very bad injury year for the Niners. As we all know, the Niners struggle with injuries. They've been one of the more injured teams as far as star players go over the last few years. So in 2020, Christian McCaffrey is currently hurt. I'm thinking of now. George Kittle was hurt in 2020. Jimmy Garoppolo was hurt, and Dee Ford was hurt. And those are three players that they had insurance policies on. So at the end of the year, their insurance proceeds became cap space for the following season in a year where the cap went down. And The problem with reporting the story is I was never going to be able to have all the information I needed. And so I can see what it's called the netting, which is the credit and adjustments that NFL teams get back at the end of every season. But it's a huge different, there's a huge range of things that go into the netting. So it could be unearned contract incentives. It could be injury settlements. It could be roster bonuses that went unearned because the players were hurt. And I'm sure, and I haven't looked specifically with those three players, but the Niners are also really good at structuring salary into per game roster bonuses where you have to be on the active roster to get that money. So long story short, that year, I don't know exactly how much of the money came from insurance specifically, but the Niners finished with 11 million in cap credit for 2021. So that meant that their cap only decreased by 4 million, whereas the rest of the NFL was dealing with around a $15 million decrease in cap. So that is a way where this strategy can really benefit you. Now, of course, the players, you don't want your players to be hurt. And this requires a player to get hurt for it to work. So it's, it's sort of a risk reward type of thing. And then when I looked at the Eagles portfolio, again, this is not fully comprehensive because this is just me pulling contracts and seeing who they have an insurance policy on, but I didn't pull every single player on their roster. I was just looking at starters. They have 16 policies on player contracts this year, of their players who play regularly. And that is a huge, huge portfolio of insurance policies. And the Eagles take out a huge range in that. They're not just taking out A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts, who have the most guaranteed money on the team. They're doing Reed Blankenship. They're doing Cam Jurgens, the center who's on a rookie contract and is only making $3.9 million in guaranteed money. And so the range of what they're paying in premiums is going to be huge as well, because a premium on Cam Jurgens or Reed Blankenship is going to be way cheaper than a premium on A.J. Brown, because of the guaranteed money involved and the money that you're insuring on that contract. So these two teams really view this as like a crucial part of their cap strategy, and other teams are catching on.
Even just hearing no other information than two of the biggest teams involved in this are the Philadelphia Eagles and the San Francisco 49ers. Right. From that alone, you would be like, this is probably something we should look into as another team. From the people that you talk to, how big an edge do you think this actually is, and how much of it is just sort of a small benefit that, is stealing a little bit of a gain somewhere?
I don't think it's when you're thinking about, like, if you're going to rank advantages, I think it's probably at the bottom of the list because, again, this requires you're sort of guessing, which player on my roster is most likely to get injured this year. Right. And you can do that based off of injury history, or you could say with these, lower amount deals, like, well, what's the downside in insuring that? There's really none because you're barely paying anything for the premium. And if the player does get hurt, you are going to get something back. So I think in terms of all the advantages that you could have when it comes to cap space, I think, something I mentioned earlier with structuring salary into a per game roster bonus, I think that's going to benefit you more because that's something you can do without paying for anything. Like, there's no premium associated with that. You just have to be able to negotiate that with agents who are going to be resisting it. But the Niners have done a really good job with that. Like, so many of their veteran contracts have money in the per game, structured into per game roster bonuses. So like I said, like, if you miss a game, the example of the veterans who got hurt in 2020, like, and for Christian McCaffrey right now, like, I don't have his contract in front of me, but if he did have money structured into per game roster bonuses, that's money he's not getting paid this year because he is on IR. So that is a way to play with the cap as well, because the NFL is a hard cap and also a soft cap, which means that you can push off money to future years and you can get money back. Like, whatever the Niners, for example, have written into a player contract, that is counting that they're supposed to pay this season. That is counting for their 2024 cap. But when it gets to the end of the year, they didn't actually pay that money. If $50,000 in a per game roster bonus they didn't pay this year, that money is going to go towards next year's cap, and it's just added on. It's not, so they're just going to have more money to next year that they didn't pay this year. And so it's a way you can give yourself money in the future, if that makes sense. So I think in terms of advantages, like, this is not like the biggest advantage of all time, but it is something where if you already believe in insurance and, that's a personal ownership choice, that's something I heard when I was reporting this, is that if you're a general manager and you believe in insurance, it may not matter because your owner needs to be the one who wants to spend the money, the extra cash, on a premium. So if you think about Joe Douglas with the Jets, for example, he came from where? Where did he work before the Jets? Philadelphia. Philadelphia loves insurance. Philadelphia's been doing insurance for years. It's a big part of their strategy. So without having spoken to Joe Douglas directly, because the Jets didn't make anyone available to me for this, I would assume, because he came from Philadelphia, that this is something that he would want to do, or something that he would see the value in, because he has the experience of being around a general manager, Howie Roseman, who thinks this is really important. But he goes to New York and they don't take out insurance. And I think from what I had talked to people around the Jets, like, they haven't done an insurance policy in a very long time there. So that is an ownership call, most likely. And so when owners have to be willing to say, I have, especially with these quarterback contracts, a lot of the owners are starting to do insurance now because they're seeing how much money they have to guarantee these quarterbacks. And I think it makes them feel better about, okay, I've had to guarantee, $250 million to Deshaun Watson, but I'm going to take out an insurance policy. So if he gets hurt, if he misses games, I'm going to get at least a little bit of that money back. And in the case of Deshaun, the NFLPA did confirm to me that last year, he missed 11 games, I think it was last year. The Browns did get cap credit from insurance last year. I don't know how much cap credit was specifically from insurance, but they came away last season with about, I think it was around $4 or $5 million in the netting for their cap for this season. So a portion of that $4 or $5 million to the Browns came from insuring Deshaun Watson's contract. So it's just I think it's just a smart thing to do when you look at, too, like, last year, 69 quarterbacks 2022, 69 quarterbacks had to start games. Last year, I believe the number was 66. The year before that was 65 or 67. So the last 3 years, more quarterbacks have had to start games than ever before. And last year, 7 starting quarterbacks were injured and lost for the season. So anecdotally, these things happen to quarterbacks. And even though they're more protected than they ever have been with the rules of the game, the style of play is changing, and offensive line play is not good. It's kind of decreasing on the decline league wide. So it is something I think that owners are looking at now that they're guaranteeing so much money to quarterbacks and thinking, well, I've got to have a way to ensure that I'm going to be okay. And when you look at Dak Prescott, another quarterback example, next season, 2025, he's going to account for 30% of the Cowboys salary cap. That's huge. That is a huge, huge, huge number. So if he's injured, they're still paying that. And this is a way for an owner or for a general manager to say, okay, if my quarterback that is eating up this huge chunk of my salary cap is injured, I still can have a way to get a little bit of that cap space back.
So the difference between ownership's attitude towards the insurance stuff, does that come down to wealth? I mean, there are cash rich and cash poor owners. They're all rich on paper, but some of them have money sitting in the bank. Some of them have it all just tied up in the equity, as opposed to philosophical objections to insurance. Because nobody likes insurance, but I think everyone realistically is aware that it's better than the alternative, which is no insurance and you go bankrupt when something bad happens.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit cash situations. I think historically it had been that, because I'll give the Bengals as an example. They did not take out insurance policies until Joe Burrow. So Joe Burrow's changed a lot of things in Cincinnati.
They just redid the locker room. They
redid the locker room.
They have an indoor practice facility that we drive by now. Yes, it's a lot different here.
Naming rights. They sold the naming rights for the stadium. I mean, I don't know that there's a player that has single-handedly changed a franchise in the way that Joe Burrow has from a business perspective. Anywho, so now the Bengals bought insurance on him because I think they felt they had to. I mean, they guaranteed a ton of money to him. That was a no-brainer for them. So that's a team that had been historically thrifty, family owned, doesn't have the cash that somebody like the Walmart family or David Tepper would have. But David Tepper is an interesting one because the Panthers have never bought insurance, and he's been the owner for 4 years now. And that may be a product of, okay, well, what giant contracts have they really had?
What are we insuring?
While he's been there? Yeah. What'd you say?
I was just agreeing. Yeah, they didn't have great players to insure the last few years.
So that may be a product of, he just hasn't had the giant contract to make that choice yet. But, he's an owner who I know watches what Jeffrey Lurie does very closely. He thinks Jeffrey Lurie is a model owner. Jeffrey Lurie of the Eagles does a lot of insurance. So it's interesting to me that the Panthers haven't. And then the Bears are another team that haven't bought insurance, and that's another family owned, this is their only business type of team. So that lines up there. The Giants hadn't done a ton in the way of insurance, but they're starting to change. They insured 3 players. Actually, they renegotiated several contracts this summer, but 3 of the contracts that they renegotiated, let's see if I can remember off the top of my head. Andrew Thomas, oh my gosh, the names are going to escape me. 2 edge rushers.
Brian Burns and
Brian Burns.
Thibodeau.
Yes.
Yes. Thibodeau.
So they renegotiated them to add insurance. So they're they're all insured for $10 million this season. So I don't know exactly what the strategy was there with like the same amount of money for all 3 of them, but that's a team that kind of stood out to me as like, oh, they haven't done a ton of this in their history, and they're starting to kind of modernize in this way too. So yeah, I think part of it does come down to how much cash your owner has. But some of it is just sort of that philosophical, like, I don't believe in this, like this is never gonna affect us type of attitude.
Is there a max that you can recoup here? I mean, I think you mentioned $20 million on Rodgers, right? Is there a max? Is it tied to the contract?
So this is where it gets really complicated.
Nice.
Every insurance policy on a player contract is different. So it's based off of players' age. It's based off of their injury history. It's based off of their career trajectory. Are they going to be a star? Are they already a star? Is their career on the downswing? It's based off of all of those factors. And then the teams can choose how much they want to insure. So I'm looking at my list of quarterbacks. I had like a chart at the end of this story. And so um, we can use Dak Prescott again. So Dak Prescott just signed. So his and I don't remember how many years that was for, maybe 5 years. Um, he just signed his deal, and so he's insured this season for up to 87 million.
Wow.
Now, that would be like worst case scenario, and that's like the amount they could recoup if he were to like never play again over the course of that contract, essentially, due to injury or illness that's covered by the policy. And so every year, the amount that you're going to get, so the amount that you're paid out on a per game basis. So each policy would have a deductible. So let's say his deductible is like 8 games. So if Dak were to miss 8 games, the Cowboys then would start making their per game amount based off of how many games he's going to miss after that. And for the 8 that he missed already, once you get to that 8 mark, you're paid for the 8 that he already missed. And the number that you get from that is basically like the number of games over the course of the contract divided by the number insured, divided by, sorry, the seasons of the contract divided by the number insured, then divided by the number of games.
Okay.
So that will give you like your per game amount that you're going to get paid out. So when you see this giant number of like, oh, they've insured him for 87 million this season. Yeah, they have, but they're not just going to get a check at the end of the year for 87 million if he had a season-ending injury. Like, that's not how it works. It's over the course of the full length of the contract. So there is no maximum. Teams could insure an entire contract value if they wanted to, but that premium is going to be really expensive. So the majority of teams are just insuring either all of the guaranteed money or a portion of the guaranteed money. So Dak has, let's see, 129 million guaranteed in his deal total, and they're insuring 87 million of that. So they're not insuring the full amount because that probably would have been that would have been more expensive of a premium to pay, and whatever their analysis told them, it was better to just insure a portion of that. So most teams are going to be insuring a portion of the guaranteed money in a contract, but not the entire amount. And then you're not going to get that full amount insured unless they were literally to miss every game of their contract.
And that's like the cash that they're getting back once the worst happens and the guy gets injured. Is the cap credit that you're getting the following year, is there a maximum to that? And is that essentially just the premium cost that you're getting back, or is...
No, so the premium does not count against the cap, which is why this is so important to teams, because this is a way to spend money that doesn't count towards your cap, and you could maybe get cap back.
Right.
Which is why this is so important, because it's like there's no other way really to like not spend money against the cap and get cap back. So what was your question? I just forgot.
That the maximum that you can actually get back in terms of salary cap credit, and how exactly, like, how does that, what determines the amount of money you're getting back?
There is no maximum, as far as I understand it. The CBA is like very short and simple when it comes to this. It's just listed under like cap refund, and it's called a refund from a player, even though the player is obviously not the one paying it. The insurance company is paying the team for the insurance claim, but it's considered a refund from a player per the CBA. So there's no limit, there's no maximum, there's no minimum, there's no restrictions on it whatsoever. And you're getting the exact same amount that you got paid from the insurance company. So literally you take the receipt from the insurance company or the invoice, whatever it is, after they pay you. Here, you got 1.5 million for this player missing 7 games last season. Okay. The team takes that receipt and they go to the league office. They submit. They don't even have to submit the insurance policy. They just have to submit their insurance receipt. And they get the exact same amount of money that they got in cash to their cap.
Wow. It's a fascinating story, Kalyn. It's all, tell everybody where to read it over on ESPN.com. And then, maybe it's just ESPN.com.
That is where to read it. Yeah.
Read it on ESPN.com.
Yeah, it's on ESPN.com. You can find it there. The other thing I'll point out that's interesting about it that I forgot to mention is that while I was reporting, I heard from several sources from the PA, from the insurance side, people from the team side, that the NFL's Management Council, which is the group that, talks about salary cap issues and player personnel things, they have been discussing this cap benefit and they're trying to learn more about how teams are really using it, because there's no good database. There's really no tracking of it whatsoever. And so they're trying to learn more about, is this a loophole that should be closed? There have been talks about maybe eliminating it, but I think they're really in a stage right now where they're just trying to gather more information to find out if this is an advantage that is unfair in some way. But I don't think it is, because as we said, if a team wants to spend money on it, they can do that. It's available to anybody. But it's interesting that the league office is talking about it in that way.
Kalyn, we really appreciate it. Also, so check out the article on ESPN.com. Also, check out the Spiraled podcast. Was that an off-season task for you? That was that's anywhere you listen to your podcast. Yeah, Spiraled.
Yes, Spiraled. It's a investigative podcast series about former NFL players that joined a extreme religious group. The most famous among the players are Kabir Biamila, former Packers star, and Robert Mathis of the Colts. They basically left their families behind, their original families, their children, their wives, and they found a pastor on YouTube that they really became interested in, and their whole lives have changed. And so I did a narrative podcast series about that. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartMedia, wherever. So if you like football, if you like a little religious fanaticism and some conspiracy theories, this is a podcast for you. Check it out.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, Kalyn. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Bye.
People say the cap isn't real.
It's hitting all my hot button issues there. You know,
So
religious fanaticism, NFL. It's everything. Everything I want in a podcast.
So go check it out. So the idea of the cap space thing, though, that is the most interesting part, because we're all into team building and how teams can
there was
find
a
their
line
little edges there.
Yeah, there was a line in the article I think sums it up really well. That's the crux of the loophole, the former club executive said. You effectively can use cash to create cap space from scratch. In a closed system, this is one of the few ways to buy cap space. I mean, that's really the key, right? Is that, okay, it does require injuries for that to be a thing, so it's not like a pure positive with no downside, but it does mean, like, think of the Rams this season. The Rams are wrecked by injuries this year.
Yeah.
If they have a ton of insurance on all those guys, and interestingly, Matthew Stafford is one of the few big-name quarterbacks that is not insured right now, which I thought was curious. But if they have a ton of, and the 49ers too, who apparently are big insurance users, if they have all these guys insured, next season, they're going to get a ton of cap credit back for that and have a lot more flexibility. And when the 49ers are coming to the Brock Purdy contract, for example, they have more money to play with than they did previously because guys got injured. So it's a benefit, albeit it's making the best out of a bad situation.
All right, we're going to be getting to this quarterback conversation here in a few minutes. Rich Gannon will join us to discuss that, the dynamics of these young quarterbacks maybe struggling, other than Jada Daniels, Commanders fans, don't worry, versus the second chance guys. But first, we're going to talk PrizePicks.
Yes.
You've got your picks. You have your lineup for this week. So let's go through your lineup. Remember, you could join us. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use code CheckTheMic. You get $50 instantly when you play $5. You sign up. If you're not in the Discord, go to the Discord, and you sign up through there, too. There's a very special chat just for that.
Yeah, so you and I are going to be going head-to-head. We're going to be competing. We're going to be tracking our results. I have created the first lineup. So number one, this week, PrizePicks is doing sort of free square, where it's a gimme, right? You're going to get it. You're going to get the W on this one.
Whole month of September. Right,
because Caleb Williams only has to pass for more than 0.5 yards. If Caleb Williams puts up a yard passing, you get the win, right? So each one of us is going to have that in our PrizePicks lineup and assume that it's going to be a win. On top of that, I have Andy Dalton, the Red Rifle, fresh off the first game of the season in which a quarterback put up 303 touchdowns. Andy Dalton is going to have more. Now, I got it at 222.5 passing yards. Clearly, I moved the PrizePicks lines just from taking part.
It's moved since you've
It's already up to 224.5, I think. So get in there while you can, because that line is shifting now that I've made my choice.
In his Bengals revenge game.
Exactly. The Red Rifle cooking right now, going up against his former team. It's going to be 422.5, let alone 222.5. The next one is more hit or miss. Justin Jefferson, against the Green Bay Packers, right? Going for more than 0.5 rushing and receiving touchdowns. So basically, is Jefferson going to score? His record against the Packers is fascinating because it's either insane, dominant, over-the-top game with 150 yards, 2 touchdowns, 15 catches or whatever, or he's kept extremely quiet and doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
So
him and Jair Alexander going head-to-head through the years has been great.
So I'm banking this time that he's due the big game, and you're going to get the explosion of production for Justin Jefferson. We're going to get a ton of yards, ton of catches, and at least a touchdown from somewhere.
My one question there is it's week 4 Darnold, right?
Do the wheels.
The analyst in me says the way he's been throwing the ball in the red zone, you feel good, but it's week 4. Is he going to keep it up?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And then my third one is, or fourth one if you count the Kalyn square. I don't know, Jim. Malik Neighbors, more than 0.5 rushing or receiving touchdowns. So again, does Malik Neighbors get in the end zone for the New York Giants? Based off the fact that he is their offense right now, I'm going to say yes. I understand that he's been their offense so much that you would think a team would go in there and say, not today, but it hasn't happened yet. So Malik Neighbors scores.
This gives you something to watch for Thursday night football against the Cowboys.
Not only does it give you something to watch for, but it gives you 14 times your money back if those all hit.
So there you go. Andy Dalton, more than 222 and a half passing yards. Justin Jefferson, more than a half touchdown. Malik Neighbors, more than a half touchdown as well. And you get that free square. Caleb Williams.
Yep.
More than 0.5 passing yards. Boy, if he goes under that, you're in trouble.
Yes. I certainly think the only one of those that's even remotely in doubt to me is Justin Jefferson. And that's only because the hit or miss nature of his games against Green Bay so far.
Yeah, I like it, Sam. It's good. It's a good one. You might be, you're riding the Red Rifle bandwagon into in the bad Cincinnati defense.
Hell yeah.
So you guys can join along with us here. Download the PrizePicks app. Again, codes check the mic. You get $50 once you put in 5. Join the Discord, and we will just have some fun with this all season.
Link to the Discord in the description of the show if you're looking for it. Join and post your PrizePicks lineups as well.
And then, tomorrow we'll go through my lineup for this weekend.
Excellent.
We're going to have Rich Gannon on here in just about 30 seconds or so, but just to set it up, I mean, to me, one of the biggest stories of the season this year, with 2 big stories, right? Offense is down, and then connected to the young quarterbacks are struggling. Is it because the NFL's better at playing defense? Is it because we're just not developing young quarterbacks as well? And then you have let me say this in an endearing term, the retread quarterbacks, the second chance quarterbacks, the Baker Mayfields and Geno Smiths and Sam Darnolds and the guys who have a second opportunity making good around the NFL. And there may not be a better second chance quarterback than Rich Gannon,
right?
Who won the MVP award at 37 years old.
MVP in 2002.
So let's bring in Rich. I don't think this is his debut.
Yeah, on our show.
Right? Hey, Rich,
hey
welcome.
Guys, how are you?
How's it going?
Good. Thanks for joining us.
Great. It is so good to be with you. Huge fan of the show, and thank you for having me.
Well,
Thank you.
We appreciate it, man. First off, I was grinding some 01, 02 Raiders film to get ready for this, and I always loved watching you play in that system. Always someone over the ball that you were throwing to. Like, how did you even get to that point where that much later in your career you're sitting there winning MVPs, going to Super Bowls?
I think a lot of it, guys, has to do with somebody having some confidence and belief in you, and that's so important as a quarterback, really at any age. And I think, I was listening to the show a little bit earlier, talking about quarterbacks like Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield. Guys that were really kicked to the curb by their respective organizations, and somebody out there saw something good in them and gave him a chance. I think, Sam Darnold's story is an interesting one. He goes to the Jets for a couple, 3 years, doesn't work out. He winds up going to the Carolina Panthers with Matt Rule and a first-time play caller and Joe Brady, and things don't go well there either. He spends 2 years there, and then he gets a chance to go to the 49ers last year. I think it was a great situation for him with, Kyle Shanahan. Brian Griese does a great job with the quarterbacks. Got a chance to watch, listen, and learn behind Brock Purdy. And then he gets a coach in Kevin O'Connell, who's played the positions, coached the position, and who believes in him, who wants to bring him in and see if they can't rehabilitate his career. And I'm so happy that he's playing well. And I think Baker Mayfield's another one. Guys, when you look at that story, it's pretty fascinating down there in Cleveland. His first 4 years in Cleveland, the third year, they win a playoff game against the Steelers.
Yeah.
And the following year, he's hurt and they run him out of town. And then he has to go to Carolina, doesn't work out, and plays, couple games for the Rams with Sean McVay. Then in 2023, he has to go to Tampa and beat out Kyle Trask in training camp. Are you kidding me? He's almost the comeback player of the year. They win the division, and now he's having a lot of success. So not everybody can come into the league like Dan Marino. There's usually a process where players have to go through some adversity early in their career, and there's a couple quarterbacks that have done it and that have been able to survive, which is not always the case with a lot of quarterbacks.
So, I think we're in this space now where it looks like teams have kind of commodified quarterbacks too much. They're moving on from them sort of too soon, writing them off. You're done. It's not going to work out. We're going to go in a different direction. Do you think that the solution to that is that teams need to be more patient with quarterback development, or actually the solution is these kind of reclamation project quarterbacks, and the area of opportunity is jumping on the ones that have been discarded by somewhere else and trying to build them back to where we thought they could go beforehand?
Well, I don't think there's an easy answer. Let me say this. I think there's a lot of dysfunction that's going on in our league right now. We fired 30 coaches in the last 4 years. Think about that, 30 coaches. And the reason they're all getting fired, including Bill Belichick, is because they can't get the quarterback room right. So when you have that much turnover, this year alone, guys, 10 different teams started a different quarterback than they did in week 1 of 2023. And that's for the 10th straight season. So we're having a hard time first identifying, then drafting or signing them in free agency, and then developing the quarterback position. Well, there's a lack of depth and talent at that position. You look at the Miami Dolphins, they lose Tua Tagovailoa. They go out and put Skylar Thompson in last week. He gets knocked out of the game. They're playing Tim Boyle. You look at the Packers. They go through training camp, and they trade for Malik Willis August 27th. It took them to August 27th, that the whole offseason program, to realize that, the quarterbacks we have, we don't like. And so there's a lot of there's not the veteran quarterback that's been in the league 10 years that's your number 2 guy anymore because of the salary cap. So it's really a crazy system right now. And I think we have so much turnover, not just with the head coaches, but with the coordinators, that, it's not unusual for, like, Bryce Young, for example. 3 head coaches and 3 play callers in 18 games. It's the old Alex Smith syndrome. Alex was in San Francisco, 6 different coordinators his first 6 years. That's a dysfunctional way to try and develop a young quarterback, and I'm seeing way too much of that across the NFL.
How difficult is that change in scheme? Jay Cutler was another guy. He had like 8 in 9 years or whatever it was, and you hear that all the time. And from an analyst perspective, sometimes it's like, well, if you're a great quarterback, you'll make the coordinator look good, but if you're not, you're going to have all this turnover. But how hard is it to change from year to year, and especially if it is, literally every single year changing coordinators? Guys,
go back to your first year in high school. We give you the Spanish book. You're going to learn Spanish your freshman year. Then we come back in sophomore year. Rather than giving you, the second year of Spanish, we say we're going to learn French this year. And then your third year, let's take that away and let's have you learn German. There's no carryover. You're always you're not able to go back to what you learned a year ago and build on that. And, develop those skill sets and the mechanics and the fundamentals. There's constantly new teaching going on. There's new terminology. There's new verbiage. There's trying to develop the relationship with a new play caller. The play caller has to get to know you, what you like, what you're good at, what you're not good at. You have to understand who the play caller is, what his fastball is. So I think we're seeing a lot of that. And that makes the development at that position a lot more difficult. You think about Peyton Manning, with Tom Moore and, being together for all those years. Drew Brees with Sean Payton all those years. Even Tom Brady, he went through some different coordinators in New England, but they're all coaches from within the organization. When Charlie Weiss left, Bill promoted Josh McDaniels. When Josh left, they promoted Bill O'Brien. When Bill left, they brought back Josh. So the system never changed around Tom Brady. He was in the same system for 20 years. So there's not a lot of new learning going on. You're constantly going back and building on what you did and adding. And that's not always the situation. And I think to have continuity and consistency around that quarterback position is absolutely critical. And I'm fascinated that so many of these owners who are such wonderful businessmen can't figure that out. These general managers, they make the same mistakes over and over again. You have to have continuity and consistency around that position. And too much turnover is never a good thing.
Rich, I have a theory that, as a former pitcher, to me, there was a difference between the mental game of pitching, how to attack hitters, and then the mechanics of throwing. And I think for a quarterback, it's probably similar, right? The quarterback coach's job in there is to help get you ready for the next week, to get you ready to understand the system, know what you're doing. But is there room for call it a mechanics coach, a person that's just working on the physical aspect of things, which is different from the quarterback coach? Is that something that teams can implement, or do they just not even have enough time? Is that perhaps a missing edge for quarterback development?
I would say I have no problem with having one of those type of coaches as long as he's in the building.
Yeah.
As long as he works for me. What I don't want is my young quarterback, at the end of the season, flying to California and working with some throwing mechanics guru, and then the guy coming back and being a different player, a different thrower, or having some type of rotator cuff or ulnar collateral ligament issue because he's doing something different. I want the people who touch and work with my player to be in the building every day. We have the best of the best. We have the best trainers. We have the best strength and conditioning coaches. We have the best performance coaches. We have the best quarterback coaches. Let's have the quarterbacks in the building more. That's the problem with the CBA guys right now. These guys, they're not allowed to be in the building in the offseason program. When I was playing, we had quarterback school. We were there in March and April, but that's not the case anymore. And I think the one position that really pays the price is the quarterback position, particularly young quarterbacks, because we don't get the time we need around these young quarterbacks. But if you're going to have somebody work on the mechanics, most of it has to be done in the off-season program. Once the regular season starts, we don't have a lot of time to be working on the mechanics. We don't have time to be working on getting your feet set to be able to throw the hitch route to the left and get your shoulders turned. We have to be able to do that. We need those reps in the off-season program so that by the time we get to training camp, we're off and running.
Man, it's interesting that maybe the Players Association that's fighting for their own, mental health and well-being, right? Fewer practices, less practice time, after this many years might be affecting the quality of the game. That part might be a little unfortunate.
So obviously the biggest quarterback kind of conversation right now is Bryce Young. The Carolina Panthers sat him down. I think based off what Andy Dalton was able to do week one, it was the right call, that Bryce Young wasn't coming out of the other side of this without some help. So what would your approach be now to get the number one overall pick playing like the number one overall pick sometime in the future?
I think it's a really tough spot to be in. We talked about the fact that, he had 3 different head coaches and 3 different play callers in his first 18 games. I think, they brought in Dave Canales to help settle him down and trying to rehabilitate him. And I think he learned some bad habits as a rookie. I think you look at him in the gun. He spent so much time in the gun. His feet were compromised. You look at some of the issues in the pocket. He's not a big guy. He's 5'10". He's a smaller quarterback. This is a big man's game. And one of the concerns I had when he came out of Alabama is I would just simply say, if you're a general manager, you're an owner, just show me 10 quarterbacks in the last 50 years that have had long, successful, and productive careers at the quarterback position who are under 5'11". Not a lot of them. And so that's one issue. And the other issue is he spends so much time in the shotgun that compromises what you're trying to do in the running game. So they're a little bit disjointed. And, I just think he got off to a bad start. He developed some bad habits. He lost his confidence. I think the players and coaches around him lost confidence, the fans. And now the process is trying to bring him back. And it's hard. And I think the best thing he can do right now is watch Andy Dalton play. I talked to someone within the organization a week ago, and he said that it's hard for us to evaluate the other positions. We can't evaluate what we have at tight end or wide receiver, even running back, or even the offensive line, because the quarterback is hurting us so much. We can't convert a third down. They're converting 9% of the third down opportunities with Bryce Young. The numbers were awful. They had to make a change. Now the question is, what do you do to get the guy back? And it may take an entire season. It may take him having to go to the back of the line and go somewhere else. It happened to me. I had to leave Minnesota and go play in other places before I finally got the chance to have someone who believed in me again and give me the keys to the car. So I don't know. I think it's an uphill battle right now for Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers.
How do you feel about what New England's doing with Drake May? The reports are that they're giving him about 30% of the first-team reps. Jacoby Brissett's the starter. I've heard opinions on both sides of that. I certainly have an opinion on it that they should do what's best for Drake May, because that's probably the long-term answer for their organization. And if it's not, they're in trouble. What are your thoughts on how they're handling May sitting but still taking first-team reps?
I think they're doing the right thing. I think they're bringing him along the right way. I think that you don't throw him out there before he's ready. That can turn out to be a really bad experience for the player and for the team and for the organization. You look at, we just talked about Bryce Young. I could name a lot of players. People don't understand there's very few Dan Marinos that come into our league and have success right away. Even Peyton Manning, people forget he went 13-3 his first year. He threw more interceptions than touchdowns. He threw 28 touchdowns his first season, if you can believe that. Peyton Manning, one of the greatest to ever play. So there was a process for him. He wasn't ready to play his first year. And I think we throw them out there too often before they're ready to play. And I just think that, you have to be smart. I like what the Patriots are doing. Drake didn't play a ton of football at North Carolina. I think they're bringing him along. They're giving him some reps. And when he's ready, they'll cut him loose. But, it's not just whether the young player's ready, the young quarterback. Is the team ready for the young quarterback? Are we good along the offensive line? Can we run the ball? Do we have some players at the wide receiver and tight end position? I don't know that they're good enough right now around Drake May to get the results that you're really hoping for. So it'll be very interesting to see once he gets the opportunity to play, just how well they play around him on both sides of the ball.
So we've been having this debate so far this season. Is what we're seeing from Sam Darnold in Minnesota real or not? Because we've kind of seen this before, a few games of Sam Darnold looking like the top draft pick, and then it kind of goes away and it disappears. But Kevin O'Connell is, a QB guru, amazing offense, perfect system. Is this real, or have we just reached week 3? Next week is when the wheels fall off.
Guys, we're keeping our fingers crossed up here in Minnesota. I care for all these young quarterbacks. I know how difficult it is to play the position. I think Sam Darnold is a very interesting guy. I talked to him at great lengths over the years. Matt Rule had me call him and talk to him before he came to Carolina. And the issue with Sam when he came out of USC was he had 39 giveaways in 26 games as a Trojan quarterback. He did the same thing when he was with the Jets. Turned the ball over his first 3 years. They ran him out of town. He goes to Carolina. 2 years down there, same thing. He's hurt, turns the ball over, and they decide to go a different direction. Then he goes to San Francisco last year, and he's with Kyle Shanahan, and he's with the quarterback coach out there, and Brian Griese, and I think that really benefited him. He had a chance to take a step back, watch Brock Purdy play. And then this offseason, Kevin O'Connell reached out to him. And I just think here's Kevin, who played the position, he's coached the position, he sees the game through the eyes of the quarterback. And he told Sam, hey, look, come on in here, I'm going to give you a chance. And Sam embraced the opportunity. He's done all the little things he has to do. And the best thing he's doing right now, guys, he's taking care of the football. He's making good decisions, and he understands what they have around him. They got Aaron Jones. They're running the ball well. You got Justin Jefferson. You got a lot of players that can make big plays in the passing game. And by the way, your defense leads the league in sacks and pressures. And they're keeping the scoring down. They're taking the ball away, creating short fields. So that's the best thing a quarterback can do. Manage the situations in the game and make good decisions. He's doing that. I hope he continues to do that because he's on a 1-year deal. And if this works out well for him and he's able to play all 17 games, Sam Darnold's going to make himself a lot of money, guys, in the offseason.
I wanted to ask you, Rich, your sort of late career resurgence, MVP, you were one of the first quarterbacks that kind of lasted deep into your 30s and were playing some of your best football. Now, Tom Brady was 45, still looking amazing. Aaron Rodgers at 40, coming off his Achilles, looks really good right now. How were you able to last to that age playing at the time you did? And what do you make of all these quarterbacks suddenly lasting way longer than they used to back in the 90s and even the early 2000s?
I was better prepared to play when I was 39 than when I was 29. And I think you learn about how to take care of your body in the off season. These players train year round. We talked about some of the best facilities in the world, some of these NFL facilities, the best trainers and strength and conditioning coaches and assistant coaches and just the ability to get better in the off-season program. So I was in better condition to play football late in my career. I learned that when I went to training camp, a lot of quarterbacks go to training camp to get out of shape because you're not playing in the preseason games, you're not practicing, and you have all these different periods for special teams or defense. And so I did a lot of extra running and conditioning during those times. And so I think you're seeing people, these older quarterbacks, they do such a great job taking care of themselves. They eat clean. They don't drink. They hydrate. They're taking care of their legs. They're doing all the little things you need to do in the off-season program. Some of these players are spending in excess of $100,000 a year on soft tissue specialists, on chiropractors, on massage therapists. Everybody's doing everything they can because the contracts are so significant from a dollar standpoint. So, I think that we're going to see players play at that position anyway because of the rule changes as well. We're going to see players play longer. And, I think it wouldn't be surprised me to see Patrick Mahomes play into his 40s. Josh Allen, even though as physical as he is, I think he could play into his late 30s. So I think it's good for the fans. You get some of the best players who can extend their careers because they're taking such good care of themselves all year long.
Liam Reynolds in the chat says, Rich could probably win the QB1 job for the Raiders this season. Rich, do you think you could, just get the ball to Brock Bowers in space and Devontae Adams? You think you could, play a little point guard out there right now?
I think it's a great situation for Gardner Minshew. The problem is the offensive line play hasn't been great, and they're dead last in rushing. But you look at Jacoby Myers, you look at Devontae Adams, both the tight ends. Michael Mayer's getting better, and of course Brock Bowers, I think, is a freak. I think he's going to be a great player. There's enough talent out there offensively to win, but they've got to do a better job protecting, and they've got to be able to run the football. They are dead last in rushing. They're averaging less than 50 yards a game on the ground. That has to change.
Yeah, it's the least efficient running attack in the NFL. Can't be that bad. It cannot be that bad and put all the pressure on the quarterback. Rich, we appreciate you joining us today. 33rd Team, CBS. Anywhere else you want to tell people to find you?
No, I'm doing great, guys. I'm great. I love football. I love talking with you guys. I love the show, and keep it going.
Thanks so much for coming on, Rich.
Yep, thanks, Rich. Appreciate it. I'm not lying when I say watching the 01-02 Raiders was some of the most fun football for me to watch with Jerry Rice,
Tim Brown,
Charlie Garner coming out of the backfield, and that offense was humming at a time when they became like a really pass-first type offense.
Yeah, it was such a fascinating team because you had this, again, the sort of nicest terms possible, this retread quarterback who ends up becoming an MVP. You have two of the greatest wide receivers of all time deep into their careers, you know, in Jerry Rice and Tim Brown. And then this offense in John Gruden's system that ends up becoming the sort of the preeminent scheme in the NFL at that time, all of that coming together at once, and Gannon absolutely cooking.
All right, I got to tell you about our friends over at Fantasy Pros. Manage your fantasy football lineups and dominate your leagues with My Playbook from Fantasy Pros. My Playbook is a suite of powerful tools to help make you better waiver and trade decisions, help you make those better decisions. Manage your lineups, win your leagues. It's all in My Playbook. It also provides unique insights like league power rankings, playoff probability, advanced weekly league analysis, and more. Like Fantasy Pros has all the tools you need here. It's created by Fantasy Pros, the #1 fantasy sports advice and tools provider in the world. This app lets you import your team for free to get custom fantasy football news, rankings, and analysis. So link your leagues today. You got to do it at fantasypros.com/33rd-team-playbook. Again, that's fantasypros.com/33rd-team-playbook, or you can download the My Playbook app. We were partnering with Fantasy Pros before the season. I loved all of their preseason draft tools, everything you needed leading into the fantasy season. But this is awesome. My Playbook for everything you need during the fantasy season. fantasypros.com/33rd-team-playbook.
Yep, let's go.
What do we have next?
The Shouty Shows.
Oh, it's Shouty Show time?
Yeah, it's Shouty Show time.
All right, let's do it. Renner loved this.
Renner loved it. You already vetoed one of the leading clips for the Shouty Shows this week.
I did veto one.
Yeah. What was the one you vetoed?
Maybe they put it in there anyway, so I don't want to spoil it. But Chris Canty on Tuesday morning.
That was it.
He blamed Joe Burrow. He said, "This is it. I'm out on Joe Burrow." Basically, I'll paraphrase. He's like, "It's Joe Burrow's fault." Like this, it screams like you literally went to bed at 9:30 p.m.
That's the perfect Shouty Show segment.
That is a perfect Shouty Show. Like, I'm going to have this take because the Bengals are 0-3. Did not watch the game where the Bengals offense was, they scored 33 points. I don't know if you saw that.
I did, yeah.
So
not in person. I wasn't there like you were.
I was there in person. I saw it. I saw it firsthand. Right. It was better in person than it was on TV.
Well, that's why exactly. We know how powerful that is.
So I vetoed that because I already heard it, but that's an absurd take.
Okay. Well, let's see what we actually got. What's our first Shouty Show take?
The Chiefs are the luckiest, flukiest 3-0 team I've ever seen. And I know it's Mahomes and it's Reed and it's Jones and it's Kelsey and Brett Veach, and they won back-to-back Super Bowls. This is a house of cards when you look at the Kansas City Chiefs. There is no way you can objectively watch this team week in, week out and say, that's the best team in the NFL. The Chiefs aren't that good, and somehow they're 3-0.
The the meme that says it's like we had him in the first half.
Yeah.
I was with him in the first half. Like that.
You were with him when he said this is the luckiest team.
No, I mean you could be objective and say there's a lot of luck in them coming out 3-0 in the first 3 weeks of the season. Where he lost me was saying that the Chiefs are a house of cards.
Yeah.
There's way too much evidence that to the contrary. However, if this was the New York Giants winning this way, we would come out of this and say, you kidding me? There's a toe down in the end zone. There's a 4th and 16 pass interference. And there's, no offense, Zach, a terrible 4th and inches play call, and a pass interference in the end zone to beat the Falcons. There's 3 or 4 plays that literally switched this season to 1-2 or 0-3.
Yeah, but none of those plays were actually, like, they were winning in all those games. Like, haven't the Chiefs been the better team in all 3 games? Like, okay, so the toe, right? The toe was to get a touchdown that still needed the 2-point conversion to win the game or not, right? That was
Chiefs were a better team.
It was the tying touchdown, not the go-ahead.
The Bengals
touchdown.
game, I thought, ended up being lucky.
Okay,
for the Chiefs because they didn't do anything to earn the pass into interference.
But that was to just seal the win, right? That was to a kick to win it, right?
Get to a kick to win it.
Like, I think you can make an argument that Kansas City, despite having not played well by their standards at all, have been the better team in all 3 games against what we expected in preseason to be 3 contending teams. Baltimore, Cincinnati, and Atlanta, a playoff team with this Kirk Cousins thing. Okay, Cincinnati is 0-3, so they look bad, but that was a good version of Cincinnati based off that actual performance. Atlanta are finding their feet, let's say, with Kirk Cousins as their quarterback. They're not as good as we expected them to be. I mean, has there been some luck involved in what's happened to Kansas City? Sure. Are they 3-0 purely off the product of luck, and this is just waiting to collapse around them? No.
No, I still think the Chiefs are lucky and good. I think they're the best team in the league, again, when they want to be. And, there's been luck, too, in their Super Bowl runs. Late hits out of bounds and whatever, tip passes on third down, whatever. There's been luck in there as well. So, again, I agree with that part. Calling them a house of cards, that's just not learning from the past. That's Adam Shine, by the way, on that take. That's just not learning from the past, right? Last year, during the regular season, it looked like the Chiefs had no chance, and then, boom, they just flipped a switch in the playoffs. Don't make that mistake again. You cannot call the Chiefs a house of cards. They'll be there. They'll be there at the end.
Yep.
All right, next one.
You got your quarterback. You got your wide receiver, right? You got to get some meat and potato brothers, all right? You got to get some beef. You can't just get pushed around in football. And you're going to have to go and get yourself Bill Belichick. What's the one thing Coach Bill Belichick absolutely positively abhors doing? Talking to the media. Let Jerry get all the shine. Let him coach the team. And let me tell you something right now. You're going to have a whole bunch of brothers far more focused and prepared than they are right now. You do that, the Dallas Cowboys are challenging for the Super Bowl championship next year. This season's a wash. You're not going to win anything this season. But if you listen to me, Jerry, I'm telling you, before it's time, you're going to get yourself a Super Bowl. Mark my words.
Ooh, a direct appeal to Jerry. That's powerful stuff. That is impressive work by Stephen A. Smith there.
That might be the closest I've ever come to agreeing with Stephen A. Smith. Like, ultimately, he is pitching, Jerry Jones to kind of take a step back and give the keys over to Bill Belichick. Kind of buy that. I think he's right. Bill Belichick would shore up the run defense of this team that's been a problem for years at this stage. I think, generally speaking, he would be a good coach for what they have going, given that they already have Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, et cetera, signed long-term. And maybe the biggest thing that it would necessitate is Jerry Jones actually taking a little bit of a step back and ceding some power to Bill Belichick. Like, even though the old sort of adage or the book is that GM Bill Belichick let down head coach Bill Belichick, it's still probably a better thing than the way Jerry Jones is currently running the thing with this, the drama and the hysteria and the contract stuff and we couldn't afford Derrick Henry and all this kind of crap. Take a step back, let Bill steer the ship, and collect another championship.
Since Bill's our coworker, do you think he'd bring us with him?
No, I don't.
Help the Cowboys?
Not yet. Now, we haven't had, we haven't
run into him in the hallway yet.
We haven't established ourselves in his inner circle yet. Maybe as time goes on and he understands how indispensable we would be, maybe that's when.
I'm with you. I don't hate this take.
Which is unusual because I usually hate every single take that Stephen A. Smith comes up with.
Yeah, and again, it was powerful because he appealed directly to Jerry.
He did.
He talked to him personally at the end of that take. My problem, I think, with Belichick getting in there, someone in the chat immediately mentions, he's 72 years old.
Yeah, it's not a long-term thing.
I do think the Cowboys are not built in his image, right? And I do wonder how much Belichick needs time to reshape things. We talk a lot about they're weak in the middle of that defense. Belichick he never really invested heavily in edge rushers where they're strong. Like the Cowboys have found a lot of good players, but probably not in the places where Belichick would want his good players, right? Not that he doesn't want a Micah Parsons, right? He's going to go coach his next Lawrence Taylor, but it would take some time to build that defense through the middle.
But part of me is why I think
to where he would want it.
I think that's kind of why I think it's a good move. Like where he would want this team to be better is where they're currently very weak, which is why it's it feels like a natural synergy, right? He's already got the stuff that he's not that interested in is good. So bring him in, have him fix the stuff that's bad that you haven't been able to fix for years, and that way success lies.
And he'll be next to Tom Brady all the time because Brady calls all Cowboys games.
Perfect.
There you go. All right, third take here.
Is it possible my Dallas Cowboys are turning into the worst team in the National Football League? At home, once again, we give up 21 in the first half. We give up 116 passing, 111 rushing in the first half. The Giants just won at Cleveland, which disqualifies our opening win at Cleveland. And now we have to go to the Giants this Thursday night. Are you sure we can win that one? I'm not.
Oh, Skip.
Now, Stephen A. directly appealed to Jerry, Skip sits in the chair next to Jerry and just says, Jerry, we might be the worst team in the NFL.
Do you think that this came from a video in which he stomped through his kitchen and tossed the Dallas Cowboys jersey in the trash can?
This is what's confusing me. For the third straight year, we've had a Cowboys jersey burnt and thrown into the trash or whatever he does with it. I thought that was a declaration that he was done with the Cowboys.
Well, I think it is, and then he comes back on board and he's done again. I feel sorry
Take the offseason to...
I feel every time I see one of those videos, which is always, it's so bad, it feels like if it's a bit, as in every detail is a bit, it's genius. Because the opening frame is always, here's the doorway to the kitchen where you can just see his feet hanging around, waiting to be given the okay to come through the screen.
It's
not like, it's like if he's aware that his feet are there, already in the shot, it is absolute genius. But I don't think he is. And I feel kind of sorry for his poor wife who has to hold the phone and film these ridiculous pantomime jersey tosses in anger.
This is Skip Bayless, by the way, for those listening.
Correct.
If you didn't catch it.
Skip Bayless thinks that Dallas might be the worst team in the NFL. I think that that's shockingly an overreaction from Skip. Yes, things have unraveled a little bit, and the takeaway, I believe, is that they're not going to be as good as they were a year ago, and getting to 12 wins for the fourth straight year is going to be tricky. Are they the worst team in the NFL? No.
Another PSA for our viewers and listeners here. If you want to get into the Shouty Show world, this is teach tape. This is teach tape from Skip. We're in week 3 of the NFL.
Yeah.
What's the last thing you just saw? You just saw your team get smoked. And you show up the next morning and you say they're the worst team in the NFL. They just lost by 3 to the best team in the NFL last year, the Ravens. They just lost by 3 at the end of the day. But they're the worst team in the NFL. You show up the next day. That's the take. You reference a little bit of what happened the previous week, but this is really based off of what happened within the last 24 hours. That's teach tape for Shouty Showness. Whatever the last thing you saw was, project it forward into the most ridiculous thing possible, that the Cowboys are the worst team in the NFL.
Well, that's the critical part.
Done.
Yeah, that's the critical part. It's like, okay, what is the most extreme logical end of this thread if I play it out, right? We lost a game. How far can I take that, right? Blow it all up, It's done.
Worst team in the NFL.
Worst team in the NFL.
Never seen anyone worse.
That's the obvious
We're
reaction.
the 1990 Cowboys. We're picking first overall, or 89 Cowboys, whatever year it was. 90.
Now he stopped
win with Aikman.
I mean, I guess because it's Jerry Jones, he stopped short of being like, let's just blow everything up, fire everybody, because that would be the ultimate logical conclusion. But this is probably where it ends up. Like, worst team in the NFL. It is. I mean, this is why Skip Bayless is the godfather of the Shouty Show. He understands.
This was special. Like Stephen A. showed a little weakness there with a reasonable take.
Right.
Skip, true to his guns.
Pure irrationality at all times.
Very well done there by Skip. So that's it for today. And then, Chris Canty with the very worst one.
Well, he's steeped in Skip Bayless mythology. You know, the man grew up as a Dallas Cowboy around Skip Bayless. He understands. He's seen all this firsthand.
He wakes up and says, what would Skip say
What would Skip and Stephen A. Smith say? That's what I'm doing.
If you merely saw the record of the team, not even the score or the game, what would you come up with? Joe Burrow, you're the problem.
Yeah.
I got to tell you about our friends over at Manscaped. The Manscaped Performance Package 5.0 Ultra. It's your all-in-one grooming playbook. This is it. From keeping things sharp down below with the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra to taking care of those rogue nose and ear hairs with the Weed Whacker 2.0. This is the lineup that'll keep you looking and feeling like a champ, both on and off the field. Even some free gifts included. You get the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra that doesn't just stop at grooming essentials. It comes with the 2 free gifts. The Boxers 2.0, right? They took the Boxers 1.0.
Toss those things right out.
Right? They upgraded them to the Boxers 2.0 Midnight Bravo.
You know what I've only just noticed from the pictures as well? The Shed travel bag that I am so enamored with has been upgraded as well.
Yeah,
get me another one of those.
You need a Shed 2.0 toiletry bag. So if we could, I mean, I haven't gotten the Boxers 2.0 Midnight Bravo yet, and I haven't gotten the Shed 2.0 toiletry bag.
I'm
yet.
like a whole iteration behind on all this stuff.
So you guys could get this before us because it's all part of it. So it's the toiletry bag, premium gear to ensure you're always ready for action, whether at home or on the road. It's what I use when we travel to Vegas, we go to Circa, whatever it might be. Get the Shed travel bag. So join over 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped and get ready for this NFL season by heading over to manscaped.com. Use the code Mike20 for 20% off plus free shipping. That's Mike20, MIC20, 20% off plus free shipping from our friends over at Manscaped.
Yep.
Performance Package 5.0 Ultra. They just keep getting better and better over there. And proud to have been with them since the 1.0.
Since the 1.0.
Way back.
Yeah.
All right, man. Mailbag. It's your time to shine.
Oh,
I might just
top
leave.
tier stuff. Do you want to start with the election one?
Yeah, Stakanova. He's been with us for a while. He was one of those Raiders fans who pushed back on us at one. I don't know if he was the genesis. He's always kind of pushed back on our Derek Carr takes, and so he's a Raiders fan who's in the YouTube comments.
Right.
And he's got a theory here. Have you considered the theory that Derek Carr is just really good in presidential election years?
I have not.
2016 and 2020 are Carr's PFF grades in the mid-80s. If he continues to have a great season this year, this is before week 3, but still, that'll be 3 different head coaches, 3 different GMs, 3 different offenses, 3 different play callers, 3 different O-lines, 3 different sets of skill position players, and in 3 different cities, Oakland, Las Vegas, and New Orleans. What will that say about Derek Carr as a quarterback? How many QBs has PFF graded in the 80s or higher in 3 nearly entirely different situations?
And even after
election theory Carr,
even after week 3, he still has the highest PFF grade of any quarterback in the NFL. Yes. So it's still on track.
Election year Carr theory.
Election year Carr. Right
so
now,
we will be tracking this election year Carr theory.
Right now, we're being inundated with obnoxious political adverts. Everything on the news is politics. No. Can't move for the politics.
The man wins in election years, or at least plays well.
That is when Derek Carr shines.
So, Carr for president. Let's go.
Carr for president.
I mean, I'm still blocked on Twitter by him and his brother Darren.
That's a shame. I'm not.
Difficult. Well, you should talk about his turnover-worthy plays that turned into incompletions. See what happens. See what happens when you talk about interception luck for Derek Carr. The family blocks you 4 years ago.
The family.
That's what happens.
Like the mob?
And then... like the mob, they do rally.
The family.
I mean, I literally tweeted this out, and Will Brinson from CBS goes, "Watch out, Carr family's coming."
Yeah, there was certainly a period
minutes,
as well.
Darren Carr I was getting SpongeBob quote tweet
Yeah.
about turnover luck stuff.
It feels
and
like
then
they've
blocked.
backed off recently, but there was certainly a run where the Cars were like militantly policing any comment around Derek
They
Carr,
protect their little guy, their little brother.
the little guy.
Is he the youngest, Derek? I'm going to assume.
I don't know. How old's Darren?
I'm going to say, I'm not going to say anything, actually. I was going to say, I pictured Darren as like the oldest. You know, he didn't have the same athletic success as his two younger brothers. Maybe living vicariously through David and Derek.
Well, when you
David's certainly much older.
when you Google him, Darren, the little panel on the right where it's sort of the summation, Darren Carr simply described as Derek Carr's brother.
Oh, it's tough.
Born 4th of September 1968. No, wait, that's a different Darren Carr. The first part I
Yeah.
gave you is correct. The second part is incorrect.
Let's get to billionairing here.
Yes.
So we finished the show the other day. You were talking about Arthur Blank inducting himself
Yes.
into the Falcons Ring of Honor.
Top tier billionaire.
We got what do we want to do with this email? Because it's just absolutely incredible.
I think you should read it verbatim, word for word.
Who is this from? Find out who it's from.
Mike.
It was from Mike. That's what I thought. Hey, Steve and Sam. Or is it Sam and Steve after that game of Madden? I've been loving the billionaire anecdotes on the podcast lately, inspired by Sam's segment, which is it officially dubbed I have money and can do whatever the hell I want moves. Yeah. I thought I'd share some of the most entertaining owner antics I've come across. I've ranked them from the mildly extravagant to the downright outrageous. Buckle up. Do you want to let's take turns reading these.
Okay.
Stan Kroenke, Los Angeles Rams. Did you know that Stan owns a ranch in Texas that's bigger than the entire state of Rhode Island? It's called the Wagoner Ranch and spans 535,000 acres. Because why settle for a backyard? We can have your own zip code.
I like that.
That's pretty solid.
Number 2, Mark Cuban, the Dallas Mavericks. Mark once got fined $500,000 by the NBA for criticizing officials. Instead of just paying up and moving on, he decided to match the fine with an equal donation to charity. Imagine the flex. Your fine means so little to me that I can donate the same amount of money to charity on top of it.
Jim Irsay of the Colts. Jim has a legendary collection of music memorabilia. We're talking guitars from Bob Dylan and Prince, and he's even shelled out $2.43 million for the Jack Kerouac original On the Road manuscript. He's got to have his own museum. That's
Nice.
pretty solid.
Robert Kraft, New England Patriots. Robert took the stage with Elton John for a duet.
I mean, sorry, given Robert trying to get himself into the Hall of Fame, I could see him being like, Elton, I'm going to sing a song with you, all right?
I mean, in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame if I can't make the Pro Football one.
Shad Khan of the Jags. Shad, he once appeared in a commercial for his company Flexingate, showcasing some surprisingly smooth dance moves and charisma. Mike here has searched everywhere but can't find the video.
6.
He's like, don't need a dance team. I got this.
Jerry Richardson,
This is
former
amazing.
owner of the Carolina Panthers. And frankly, this deserves to be a lot higher than 6 on this rankings. Jerry has a 13-foot statue of himself erected outside the Panther Stadium, complete with 2 Panthers by his side. This may top the Ring of Honor by Arthur
Can we
Blank.
get the picture up there? I had never seen it. I remember them saying they took
You've
it
never
down.
seen this?
I remember seeing it years
It's
ago.
a
But
genuinely ridiculous statue. Like it's Jerry Richardson with his hand out holding a football, right? And then
this
2
worse?
Panthers either side of him. This is like
this is worse than the Ring of Honor.
I don't know if it's worse than the Ring of Honor, but it's right up there with it. And that's like, top couple of
I
billionaire
brought
things
Panthers
you could do.
to Charlotte.
Like, look at me. I am the man that brought football and the Panthers to this area. So, yeah, absolute top-tier billionairing from Jerry.
James Dolan of the Knicks, Mike's favorite here.
I have to agree, though. This is also my favorite from this list.
While he's not busy with the Knicks, James fronts his own blues band, JD and the Straight Shot. But why not stop there? He uses ownership of Madison Square Garden to have his band open for major acts like the Eagles. Yes, he opened for them at MSG. Do yourself a favor or not, check out his songs Better Find a Church and Ballyhoo on YouTube. It's an experience.
That's elite, right? Yeah, you can play Madison Square Garden. There's just one catch. What's that? My band opens for you?
I am opening for you.
Yeah.
So this brought me to you,
Yeah.
as a man with intimate knowledge of the billionaire brain.
Correct.
I would like to know how you would billionaire.
Well-
and even how you would millionaire. Who did I mention was millionairing really well? I sent you something.
Dave Portnoy.
Oh, Portnoy did good millionairing.
Portnoy does good millionairing stuff. Like, he does a lot of things. So a lot of having they term it, at the risk of getting us, whatever on YouTube, they term it "fuck you" money, right? Like, I have so much money that
Now we got a strike or something.
I can just throw up the fingers and do whatever the hell I like. So Portnoy does good FU money things, right? Like, he has a bottle of champagne that he opens up once one of his like mortal enemies, like once their demise, to celebrate their demise, essentially, in some way, shape, or form. Now, look, Portnoy is a problematic figure in various other ways, but he does millionairing well, right? I'll say that for him, right? I will say, though, that Howard Hughes is my favorite billionaire. People probably know of Howard Hughes. He's the guy from The Aviator, the movie. Like, he's the archetypal crazy billionaire, right? A couple of my favorite Howard Hughes stories for you, in case you're unfamiliar. As he got like crazier in his old age, for his last several years, him and his entourage would like bounce around various hotels and just live in them. And they would take over the penthouse floor and maybe the floor below that, right? And Howard Hughes would live in like the penthouse floor, and then the entourage would be in the floor below, and that's where they do everything. So he rocked up in Vegas and decided to stay in the Desert Inn, right? And he's staying in the top 2 floors. This is when the Desert Inn was on the Strip. And at some point, like 6 months later or whatever, the Desert Inn decided they would quite like their penthouse back and was like, you need to move out. Like, you've stayed too long at this point. And Howard Hughes didn't want to do that, so he bought the Desert Inn just so he didn't have to move. He was like, I'm just going to buy the place, then I don't have to leave. And then he was kind of annoyed because this small, crappy hotel called the Silver Slipper or something, they had a giant neon sign of a Silver Slipper outside.
Obnoxious.
And he could see that from his room, and it was kind of keeping him awake. So he bought the Silver Slipper just to move the Silver Slipper neon sign so that it wasn't disrupting his sleep anymore. That's also top tier. But maybe my favorite bit is, we're in like the 1960s, right? Nobody has like a Netflix, you don't even have a video collection or whatever. It's kind of awkward to see the movies you want to see. And Howard Hughes is a big movie guy. He used to make movies. He was a producer. He was a director, I think, at one point. And he was also an insomniac. So he, stayed up all night, basically. There's nothing on TV. All these stations used to shut off at like 10 p.m. That was no good for Howard. So he bought the local TV station and just made them play all his favorite movies all night. And it was even better than that, because if he missed the start, like, it was still sort of, it's not quite as convenient as Netflix where you just press play and it's on. So they would like start his favorite movie and he was in the jacks or something, taking a dump, and he'd come back, I've missed the start of the movie. So he'd call them up and make them restart it. So you'd be in Vegas like watching a movie and they would just like restart because Howard Hughes had missed the start of the movie and just made them redo it. That's amazing. He also apparently, one day in like whatever it was, the 1960s, Bullet is playing on the TV, and Bullet is still out in the movies. Like, it's like a new release. Howard had somehow been like, I really want to see Bullet, but I'm not going to a theater. I want it on my TV station. So he just like phoned up Warner Brothers or whatever and bought it, and it was playing whilst it was on the movie theaters on Howard Hughes' TV station late night. That is how you billionaire.
We've been brainstorming other ways to branch out as, personalities or whatever we are.
Yeah.
And other things that we can do. And I'm thinking lifestyles of the billionaire, or, lifestyles of the rich and famous billionaire edition from you would be an outstanding addition.
I mean, I need to find a biography of Howard Hughes.
Billionaire story time, as Will mentions.
Absolutely. Like, that email was top tier from Mike, whoever it was.
That was great depth. I mean, we have incredible emails from our viewers and listeners. Check
I would
encourage
anybody that has top tier billionaire stories to email them in to check the mic at the3013.com, because I am all for any and all segments on top tier billionairing.
Let's wrap it with this. How would you billionaire, or how would you even millionaire? Like, first step, what's this look like for you?
I mean, I think it's the problem is it's ad hoc stuff. It's like Howard Hughes, right? The top tier billionairing is what is inconveniencing me in a small way right now that I can solve with money, right? That's effectively what it is.
See, I think simply like I would get I got to have Jeff Ruby's at least 3 times a week.
See, that's not.
But that's just something I can't do right now.
No.
That I would like to do. Is that not the right mentality?
You are like you need to combine the previous 2 segments, right? Put yourself in the Skip Bayless mindset.
Yeah.
How far can I take this to be to the most extreme version, right? So I would like Jeff Ruby's multiple times a week, ideally daily. Let's face it.
Daily, yeah.
The answer to that is not, I'm going to buy Jeff Ruby's several times a week. The answer to that is, I'm going to buy Jeff Ruby's the thing, the building, the restaurant,
Yeah.
or just hire a chef, right? And he's going to make me Jeff Ruby's every day. That's how you billionaire. You don't just you don't just DoorDash Jeff Ruby's 3 times a week now that you got money. You buy Jeff Ruby's.
I got it. I'm learning.
And maybe you buy it and you transport it brick by brick to the house next door to yours.
See, I was just thinking of millionairing, not billionairing.
Right.
I'm not thinking big enough.
No, not even close.
I'll learn from you. That was fun. We'll do billionaire story time.
Yes.
It's going to be great. Check the mic at the33rdteam.com is where you guys can all email us. You're starting to get the emails now? Did you get added?
Correct, yes.
To the list, so you could start to see them now. Don't forget to get to the Discord. So the link is in the chat. Get to the Discord and sign up for PrizePicks, the PrizePicks app, and join us as we build our lineups every single week. We'll have a lot of fun with that. And as always, only 35% of you, it's right around 35% of our listeners actually click the subscribe button on YouTube. Only 35%. That leaves 65% of you that are kind of lazy, or you don't trust us. You don't believe us. You don't believe in us.
I love the way you're really persisting with the strategy of insulting the people that listen but don't subscribe.
I believe you. It's a little persuasion.
Yeah.
But we love you and we appreciate you. Just hit that subscribe button on the way out. Hit that thumbs up on the way out. If you're listening in podcast land, same thing. Subscribe, 5-star review. All of that stuff helps grow the show. Check the mic. It's been about a month and it's moving, man. It's been great. We appreciate everybody that's been a part of this. Tomorrow, week 4, NFL preview, 10:30 a.m. sharp Eastern time, and we'll be going through every single game. So thanks to everybody for tuning in. We'll see you again tomorrow with our week 4 NFL preview.